concept of the patriarchy.
Yes.
On one side you have a sort of almost conspiracy theory type idea of the patriarchy. It's men oppressing women throughout history, hoarding all of the money and the power. But I do speak to a lot of other women who have a much more nuanced understanding of it and saying, well, no, the patriarchy is a system that forces both men and women into roles that that don't fulfill them and that don't speak to their deepest needs. Yes. It sounds like you're coming from that same perspective, if you want to define it that way.
I'm disagreeing with both perspectives. Okay, I'll take one at a time. So let's go in almost every gender studies course. The number one of Gender Studies 101 advocates that we've lived in a world dominated by a patriarchy in which men made the rules to benefit men at the expense of women. There's virtually no gender studies teacher at a major university that would disagree with that. And I say that's completely inaccurate. What is more accurate from my perspective is that we've lived in a world that's dominated by the need to survive. And in that attempt to survive, most cultures developed roles that were different for men and for women. Women risked their lives in childbirth and made sacrifices to raise their children effectively. Men risked their lives raising money and risked their lives in war to protect the children that the women bore. And so both sexes made different types of sacrifices, and so because that was what was necessary for survival. And so the dominating force was not patriarchy, but survival. I disagree with the second premise because it is not appropriate, I don't believe, to call it a patriarchy that forced both sexes into roles. That would be as mistaken as calling it matriarchy that forced both sexes into roles. In fact, in most nations, mothers care more that their children get married and that stay into strict roles, that women in many respects and in many cultures are more conservative, more attached to roles than the men are. And so, but it really doesn't make any difference which cultures have which percentage of men and women that are attached to roles. What is true is that using the word patriarchy to say that patriarchy hurt both sexes is as misleading as using the word matriarchy because it sort of tends to blame men or it would blame women if we say a matriarchy forced both sexes into both roles. And so I'd like to say, rather than using the words patriarchy or matriarchy, it was survival needs and the desire to survive that led most cultures to figure out what roles men and women could play to help the next generation survive and thrive to a greater degree.